Hey, thank you for joining me for today's video. I'm Rick Chapo with DMCAagentservice.com. So today we're taking a look at the subject of the DMCA and Europe. Specifically, does the DMCA apply in Europe? And so it's an interesting question because this is one of those areas where legal requirements often differ from the practicalities of running a business online. So technically, from a legal perspective, a purely legal perspective, does the DMCA apply to Europe? And the answer is no. The DMCA is a federal law in the United States. It was enacted in 1998, and it has domain over the United States and the individual states. It does not have domain over anybody in Europe. And in fact, Europe has its own copyright paradigm. They've traditionally worked off of directives in the EU. And in fact, I'm recording this in April of 2019. And last month, the EU passed a very controversial copyright directive. It'll take 2 years for member states to pass laws supporting that directive. But the basic idea is they're shifting some of the copyright infringement responsibility, certainly for monitoring it and filtering it, over to large sites. So they're moving away from a DMCA kind of paradigm into something that's more restrictive for the larger platforms. So you should see a lot more censorship in Europe and all kinds of nasty effects. But the EU copyright directive is way beyond the scope of this video. Just if it's something that you're going to have to deal with if you're in Europe or you're targeting Europe, make sure you go take a look at it because it's a lovely little nightmare all on its own. So if the DMCA does not technically apply to Europe from a legal perspective, does that mean you can just ignore it? The answer is generally no. There's a couple reasons. Now here we're moving away from the legal requirements and looking more at the practical requirements. While countries and the European Union like to issue rules, regulations, and directives, we all know the internet's basically borderless. So if you are in the EU, let's say you're a business located in the EU, but you're targeting the US market, well, you're going to want to go ahead and probably comply with the DMCA. And the reason for that is because you're targeting the U.S. market, that market's going to expect you to. Your audience is going to expect that. And if an infringement complaint arises, it's probably going to be from somebody who's a copyright owner in the U.S., since your target market is Americans and they'll be uploading content to your site or app. If you get sued, you're probably not going to show up for the lawsuit to defend it. Let's say you get sued in the lovely state of Nebraska. You're probably not going to show up. Well, the court's going to enter a default judgment against you. And then at that point, the attorney, the suing attorney, can ask the court to block you in the United States. So your site or app would not be viewable in the U.S. And I imagine that would not be great for your business model. So in that situation, even though you're located in Europe, you probably want to go ahead and comply with the DMCA. And in fact, we see that quite a bit. Companies that are located beyond the U.S. Will often comply with the DMCA for two reasons. One, just to be responsible. But two, if they comply with the DMCA, they're getting immunity from copyright infringement. So why wouldn't you? Certainly in the U.S. courts, at least. So it makes sense to on many applications. And then two, if you're dealing with a global business, a business that is looking to pick up clients all over the world, well, I mean, you might as well go ahead and do it. So when I'm talking about these kinds of businesses, let's say a hosting company. Well, if you're a hosting company, where you're located is really sort of irrelevant. If you want to pick up clients in the U.S., well, if you pick up, let's say, 3,000 websites, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to get, copyright infringement claims coming in. So you want to go ahead and comply with the DMCA, regardless of where you're located, because again, you want to take advantage of the immunity that's provided under the law. So you don't end up getting sued in the U.S. and blocked. That would be a bit of a disaster. So again, there's a practical versus legal aspect of this. From a legal aspect, the DMCA does not apply in Europe. From a practical aspect, many European companies will often comply with it. So there you go. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Have yourself a good one.